I'm not interested.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Ready Player One? Stick around and find out. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba ba da ba 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 da ba ba da ba. I did it! You ever tried that? Try to sing three different 80s John Williams scores at this one after the other back to back. Superman, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones. Anyway, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Ready Player One. Now, I haven't read the book. It's been suggested to me for years that I should, but I never got around to it, and I just thought, okay, they're making a movie. I'll just watch that. The synopsis provided by Warner Brothers reads, in the year 2045, the real world is a harsh place. The only time Wade Watts truly feels alive is when he escapes to the Oasis, an immersive virtual universe where most of humanity spends their days. In the Oasis, you can go anywhere, do anything, be anyone. The only limits are your own imagination. The Oasis was created by the brilliant and eccentric James Halliday, who left his immense fortune and total control of the Oasis to the winner of a three-part contest he designed to find a worthy heir. When Wade conquers the first challenge of the reality-bending treasure hunt, he and his friends, aka the High Five, are hurled into a fantastical universe of discovery and danger to save the Oasis. Alright, so let's talk about the story, the script, the pacing, that kind of thing. This is a pretty action/spectacle heavy experience with a story that's fairly simple. What engaged me most was actually the world, not really the story, and the potential experiences that could be had in the Oasis, and kind of just seeing what the next pop culture reference was going to be, or what the next solution to the current challenge, was going to be. Although some people are killed in one scene in the first third of the movie, those were kind of like the highest the stakes got. I strangely didn't feel the stakes of this movie. I mean, there's a evil corporation that's trying to win this contest so they can get control of the Oasis, and a lot of people are really into the Oasis, but I don't know. There was something. It didn't feel life or death. If this evil corporation would have gotten control of the Oasis, it just would have felt like, okay, people are hosed, and they're probably going to have to. They probably won't be able to afford the Oasis anymore. They'll probably have to start taking off their headsets and engaging in other activities. So there was something about the world that they didn't present enough of to me so that I understood how bad it would really be if this evil corporation gets control of the Oasis. Apart from them, the corporation, you could see them like planning, like, once we get control, then we'll put ads all over the place for people and stuff, and I was like, really? Those are the stakes? They're going to get control, they'll charge people more, and there'll be more ads and stuff like that? I don't know. As stakes in a sci-fi movie go, it seemed pretty tame to me. Like I said, there was this, I guess since I don't want to give away too much, but anyway. So yeah, didn't feel the stakes very much. It felt like the plot of an 80s movie where the low-income underdogs are going up against the wealthy corporate fat cats. Now, you might think, well, that's appropriate, Pater, because, there's all these 80s references throughout the movie. Well, yeah, but they're all taking place in connection to the Oasis, because the creator of the Oasis was big into 70s through 90s pop culture, and so that has influenced this whole competition and stuff and the things that everyone else is interested in, but it wouldn't influence, like, how life carries out, and like what it was kind of like on a meta level that there was this 80s element in the story, and so making the plot of the movie itself an homage to the 80s, if that was intentional, was kind of meta to me in a way that detached me from the drama and from the stakes. Still, I cared about the main character enough to want to see what became of him, and what became of his life and his relationships. And despite the large scale spectacle throughout this movie, the stakes that I was interested in were much more personal, revolving around Wade Watts' relationships and his attachment to the real world and his, attachment to life in the Oasis. Thankfully, the value of real world relationships was an intended theme, and it does have a nice built-in payoff. I had trouble accepting the logic of the world at times. That the police and government in this movie just kind of seemed generally absent without explanation. And the logistics, and maybe you could say, well, because corporations are like ruling the world. Well, but it wasn't. I guess it wasn't as clear to me as I thought it could be, that how much power the corporation had over the running of society. So the fact that the government and police were largely absent was like, this is weird, and also the logistics of how VR controls and VR suits work in this movie seemed inconsistent. Some people, they would like have these like conveyor belts that would move in any direction, so that you could have the headset on and be running around in the virtual world and not bumping into things. But a ton of people didn't use those, and they would just run around in the real world or jump around on their furniture as you showed them doing things in the virtual world. And in those shots, it would conveniently parallel, their furniture would conveniently parallel a rock that they were standing on in the virtual world. But I'm like, how is it always going to parallel like that? It was convenient in this shot, but how is it really going to work? And they would have people like running around in the streets as they're doing a raid, in the game. And I'm like, why are they not like whacking into parked cars and totally stumbling over themselves as they run into telephone poles or whatever the crap else is in the real world that's not in the game world? So I just kind of had to shrug my shoulders and accept that. And like I said, combine that with the 80s kind of like vibe of the plot. And I just kind of had to go, all right, we're just kind of having this nostalgic kind of not really grounded experience. And so, once I adjusted to that, I was like, okay. The 70s through 90s pop culture references are too numerous to name, and I'm not even going to spoil any in this review. I recommend watching the movie and seeing what you can spot for yourself, and then compare notes with friends, because much of the joy of these references for me was how unexpected they were. I was like, oh my gosh, they brought that into this movie, so those moments were really cool to not know about in advance. Okay, some brief words about the cast. I thought the cast was solid, but I would have liked to have seen some kind of no-name actors, which there were actually a handful of those in the supporting cast, and so that was cool. But I would have liked, even in the leads, to have both no-name actors and actors who weren't beautiful or physically fit specifically in the lead roles. I think it would have more effectively brought out the themes of people creating attractive online alternate identities for themselves as a fantasy that they want to live out. There's a character in here who is kind of insecure about how they look in the real world, but when you see them in the real world, I'm like, okay, I guess I know what they're talking about, but they still have really nice looking hair and good complexion, good like healthy looking skin and nice trim body and stuff, and so anyway, that I think it was a missed opportunity to use something other than the usual trim fit Hollywood body types. Missed opportunity. That said, I'm not surprised about that. I'm just kind of like pie in the sky wishful thinking right now, I guess. Moving on to stunts and visuals. This is like a CGI fest, but with a virtual world as the premise. That works fine for me. And the trade-off is some wildly creative spectacle, even before inserting the too numerous to count pop culture references. It's a visual feast. In fact, it almost felt like too busy at times. Like, but it was worth it. It was a really, really unique experience. I don't always comment on the score, but I will briefly here. The score is by Alan Silvestri, and it felt appropriately like a John Williams score to me. That's really what it sounded like a lot of the time. But again, I would have preferred to have that somewhat old school John Williams melodramatic vibe to be attached only to the virtual world, which is influenced by 80s pop culture, and kind of bring out the vibe of the 80s, when we're in the virtual world, and then have a different style of score when we move out of that into the real world, maybe a more modern or serious kind of sound. All right, so did I pick out any moral, philosophical, spiritual themes that seemed significant or that I thought would spark worthwhile thought or conversation? Much like the Bruce Willis movie Surrogates, Ready Player One is... this is stating it a little too strongly, but I'll say it anyway. It's a cautionary tale about investing too much time in a virtual world or in superficial relationships. But unlike the movie Surrogates, this movie is also a celebration of virtual worlds and entertainment. So the pointedness that would, potentially be cautionary in the message is muted a bit, I think, by the way that entertainment is celebrated and glorified. But I do think there's room for that. I do think there's room for celebrating, entertainment. We shouldn't poo-poo entertainment or even extremely immersive and involving entertainment hobbies. Video games, paper and pencil RPGs can create some amazing experiences that we shouldn't feel guilty about giving some time to and really enjoying, to the best of their potential. And yet, how much time we give to our hobbies is a crucial issue that we need to visit and revisit. We're talking about, I think, two different things when you talk about how much you're enjoying something and how often you're enjoying something. So I think that's something we need to visit and revisit, considering not only the relationships that we currently have, such as family and friends, or people that we're dating, or that are our spouses, but also relationships that we might develop if we prioritize keeping time carved out in our schedules to look for and pursue new friendships, new relationships. And as this movie sums it up, it may involve pain, but real life is the only thing that's real. And I really appreciated that note. All right, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I would go back in time, maybe in a DeLorean, and say, Peter, skip this for now and just buy it. Buy it when it comes out on home video. It's not a mind-blowingly great movie, but it was pretty cool, and you'll want to watch it more than a couple times, I think. It's rated PG-13 for sequences of sci-fi action, violence, bloody images, some suggestive material, partial nudity, and language. I actually don't remember the partial nudity. That stuff usually sticks out to me, so maybe it was a background character. It depends on what what they mean by nudity. I don't remember seeing any butt cracks or female frontal nudity. There was like a naked woman briefly in the movie, but she was covered always by strategic camera obstructions. So there you have that. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. I'm going to be off-grid until April 16th, starting now to April 16th. That means that I won't be checking email or responding to YouTube comments and social media type stuff. There will still be content on the YouTube channel in the meantime, and there'll be a podcast at christiangeekcentral.com both this week and next, but I won't be responding to any comments and stuff like that until April 16th or later. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a Spirit Blade Insider, which grants you exclusive monthly behind-the-scenes content. For more info, you can visit our About page at spiritblade.com, where you'll also find where you'll also find our audio dramas and weekly podcasts. And finally, there's a ton more content and community over at christiangeekcentral.com. So I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey, just a reminder that this humble little YouTube channel is so dependent on people just like you. There are three main ways you can support this channel, and they're all over at spiritblade.com. The first is to purchase one of our sci-fi or fantasy audio dramas. Second is to give us a donation of any amount. And third, you can become a Spirit Blade Insider and get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes monthly goodies. You can get more information on our About page over at spiritblade.com. Thanks so much.